Hello my friends, and welcome back to the channel. Today we are going to be comparing the Roland E-4 Vocal Tweaker to the tried and true Roland VT-4 Vocal Transformer, which has been around for a couple of years now and been a staple of my studio since its introduction, but it's been replaced by the new E4 here, and I just want to compare some of the sounds and some of the reasons why you might appreciate one or the other, assuming you're waiting to buy one for the studio or on the go, or just looking to compare for your own sick reasons. So to start, we've got the VT4. And the VT4 is a very studio-friendly device, even compared to the newer and ultimately more capable E4. The VT4 has a more professional I/O. You've got an XLR input, you've got proper quarter-inch outputs, you've got a full 5-pin MIDI input. It's better equipped to fit in with a full-size studio, where the E4 is a lot more compact. It has a built-in battery. The VT4, it can take double A's, but it's very rare, I find, that you would use it in a scenario where it requires it, although it does reduce the USB noise under the wrong circumstances. The E4 has a built-in battery, and it's much more convenient to use in that sense. The USB-C functionality is a huge improvement over the standard USB functionality of the VT4. You've got class-compliant drivers. You can plug it into an iPad and get audio, MIDI, and power all from one cable, or any number of USB audio host devices. The VT4 requires a set of very specific drivers, and it's only ever going to plug into your computer or through a device that requires conversion with the quarter-inch outputs. So a lot of advantage to the E4, like right out of the box. But that's not to say that one's better than the other. In fact, there are features in the VT4 that might stand out for you, and a lot of improvements on the E4 that really make a difference for me. Let's just take a listen to how either one sounds, and that's really going to help us come to terms with what might be the best choice for your use. So we've got the VT4, and the VT4 has a lot of its functionality built right onto the surface in a way that's very easy to understand and doesn't require a lot of secondary functions or deep diving to get the most out of. We can turn our balance up here, and we can go to quite an extreme with our pitch, or quite low, depending on what we need. So as far as pitch goes, on the VT4, you've got the range of +1 or -1 octave, and anywhere in between. The E4 gives you better options to work with pitch-wise. You can, let's switch over here. You can do the same octave up, you can bring your octave down, but by holding auto pitch, I can fix the rate like a robot. I can fix the rate at a robot. I can bring it 1 octave up into a fixed position. I can bring it 1 octave up. I can bring it 2 octaves down. And that's something you can't do with the VT4. With the VT4, you've got this robot effect, and the robot effect does the exact same thing. If I'm moving up and down right here, you cannot hear the change of the pitch that I'm making, which is very interesting. E4 lets you go down 2 octaves, VT4 only lets you go up or down 1. And something worth mentioning here, and I bet you can hear it because I've got a very, very sensitive microphone, but one of the handiest features, one of the more pro-level features on the VT4 is that nice center detent, where on the E4 you have to be very careful about finding that center point, although you do have the very welcome benefit of a screen to get you there and make sure that you get right in the middle, but you know it immediately on the VT4. Now, as far as extreme examples of sounds go, we can drop the pitch
and bring the formant all the way up, and that just sounds like a weird little robot alien. Or we can bring the pitch all the way up
formant all the way down. And this is the VT-4, one of its most extremes.
We can do the same thing on the E4.
And get a very similar sound from formant up and pitch down.
Or a very deep sound by doing the same. So, this is the sound of the E4 at one of its most extremes. This is the sound of the VT-4 at that same extreme.
Where we can swap it back and forth like this. And get the same type of sound on the E4. There's a lot of difference between them.
There's a very big difference between these two sounds, or between these two devices, when you bring them to their extremes. I actually think the E4 had a little bit better fidelity at its most extremes, but in regular use, I can't really appreciate the difference between the two. E4 has a beautiful reverb algorithm here, and that's something that you're reduced to on the V4. You actually have options for effects. We can go with reverb or an echo that allows you to change the timing, the speed. And so with the echo effect and a little bit of
Formant control, you can
Really make some interesting
pitch effects
moving them back
and forth,
and combining them with something like
which we'll talk about
in a second. But we've also got a delay effect, which is synchronized to the MIDI clock. We can turn that up or down with the reverb fader. And then our final effect is a chorus. It's very wide. Adds a lot of stereo depth to our sound. And unfortunately, that's not something you can use in combination with the reverb or any other effects. Whereas with the VT-4, you've got a little bit more versatility in the effects section. We've got the megaphone effect. This is me talking to you on a megaphone. Then you've got radio frequency effects. Maybe we're on the phone. Maybe it's long distance, and I've got some very bad news to share. Or number 3 is a chorus effect. It's not quite as wide or as deep as what you get on the E4, but it can be used in combination with the reverb, which is a very nice feature, I think. Those 4 effects and their presets, there's something that you don't get on the E4, although they might be a little bit novel in professional use. I still find a lot of fun and a lot of function for them when I'm jamming in the studio or looking to create a creative effect with my voice. And that's another feature that you can do on the VT-4 that you don't get on the E4. There are different effects that you can load into the memory. I've got different reverbs loaded in from the Roland website here, but you can load up the VT3 algorithm. You can load up EQs and different effects, and features like that, they just aren't available on the E4 just yet, if ever. So that's something worth keeping in mind, because having some different reverb algorithms and being able to play a little bit is what this is all about. Now, that being said, the E4 takes almost all of what's important and characterful about the VT4 and improves upon it in a lot of ways. We've got our
vocoder on the VT-4, and it has 4 different presets that we can cycle through and listen to different sounds.
But on the E4, we don't have the same preset scenario or setup that we've got on the VT4, but what we do have is a more adjustable vocoder. So if I go into the vocoder section here,
and what we can do is cycle through the 4 different carrier waves and kind of pulse width modulate them depending on our position on the slider here. You can see it scrolling through different square waves or soul waves or carriers. So that's very interesting. And maybe if we add a little reverb, it'll sound sweeter.
Same with the harmony section. On the harmony section of the VT4, you've got 4 presets. You've got what sounds like 3 or 5. I don't know. I don't have perfect pitch, so I'm just going to be bullshitting these. You can watch my other VT3 versus VT4 video if you really want to know the harmony effects on this thing. But we've got our number 2, which is maybe a +3. Harmony effect 3, which is an up and a down, and then harmony effect number 4, which is maybe a +3, a +5. But on the E4, we've got 10 different options that we can choose to use. So we turn on harmony here, and we can go up to a -7th or a 7th, -5th, 5th, 3rd, perfect 5th, octave up, octave down, octave up and down, and up and down perfect 5th. So we've got harmonies, and we've got harmonies. There's a little bit more selection in the E4, but the VT4 is just a little bit more immediate and a little bit more straightforward to use in a scenario like this. Whereas the E4 just gives you a little bit extra control over your sound, which can make a big difference when it comes to being very specific about things, or when it comes to fitting in a mix. From there, the E4 takes a lot of great features and leaves the VT4 kind of in the dust. And a really big part of that is the looper section that's built in. So the looper section that's built in is very fun. The looper section. And we can apply a lot of creative effects just based on our loop. You can synchronize it to a MIDI source. You can use it freely. You can undo or redo your steps so that your recordings can move back and forth. It's an incredibly deep looper and a little frustrating to synchronize, but once you've got it, it's the biggest reason the E4 has replaced the VT4 in my studio for fun jams and for looping vocals. And the scatter section is awesome for rhythmic sounds and glitch effects and just taking your sound to a very interesting new place. I talk over this effect. Maybe what we'll do is bring in both here so you can hear me talk over the scatter effect. We've got 3 different scatters that we can run through different levels of intensity. And to change the scatter, we just hold a 1, 2, 3 corresponding button. We can change that up all the way. We can make scatter 2, a different section, 11. I could hold scatter 3, make that scatter 18. There we go. So scatter 18's got a very rhythmic thing going on for it. When synchronized alongside a drum machine or in the rest of your studio or in a jam, it's incredible what it can do to take your vocals to a very different and interesting place. Let's see, what else do we got here? Still got to find that center detent. So the VT4, it got a very sensitive mic here today. You'll notice that I've got the VT4 and the E4 connected via one USB cable to the computer here, and that allows me to use my very sensitive USB mic here and route it back to these devices via USB. That way there's no mic swapping, or there's no question about how they sound based on the microphone that I'm using or how they're connected. They're both connected exactly the same way with this microphone everything that you're hearing today is running through one of these two units. It's the best way to ensure that we're getting a quality comparison between the two. So E4 and VT4 are getting identical signals in this scenario. The VT4, it's much more straightforward to use. All the functionality in a very real way is built right on the top here. To change presets, you hold the corresponding button, and it's very easy to know what you're doing or where you are. The E4 requires a little bit more thoughtfulness. You've got to memorize a couple more handy and important button combinations. The auto pitch, for example, requires you to hold auto pitch for a depth selection, whereas you just scroll it up and down on the VT4 here. To change your key, you've got to hold the harmony button, and that will let you scroll up and down through a range of key settings. The VT4 gives you a main encoder to select your key right on the side of the unit. But that's a pro and a con depending on what matters to you here, because you're a lot more limited with the VT4. In fact, it only gives you a range of major keys to select. You can't go chromatic or determine a minor key, whereas the E4 here gives you a much better selection. I can hold that harmony button and I can select any range of major keys. I can select chromatic mode, which is something you don't get on the VT4, or I could select a minor key. And as far as I can tell, there's no difference between doing a little math and picking C minor on the VT4 or selecting it very specifically on the E4 here. But it may prioritize your harmonies a little differently or the root note of your singing a little stronger, depending on which of the two you use. That's just my assumption. The little screen there can be a very, very handy addition between the two. The VT4 doesn't have a lot of depth to its control. It isn't immediately on the surface, but there is a huge range to these faders and to these encoders. So to have that little screen on there, well, it's not like especially informative. It gives a really, really good idea, like a much clearer picture of what you're actually doing on the unit, where the VT4 can require a little bit of guesswork for some of those deeper button combinations or setting changes. Auto pitch is worth comparing, but I'm not going to sing a song, or I'm not going to really put it through its paces in a scientific way. Let's just see what it sounds like. We've got it set to C minor, so auto pitch turned all the way up. Maybe just a little bit of reverb here. Reverb. C minor. C minor. C minor. I'm singing a song. C minor. C minor. C minor. This is me singing in C minor. Ooh. Okay, pretty sorry for that. Pretty sorry for that, indeed. So sound-wise, feature-wise, very comparable. We've got the VT4, a little more studio-friendly, a little more professionally equipped to connect to your gear. We've got the E4, very small, very compact, very mobile-friendly for like a gadget setup where you've got Roland boutiques and Volcas, and well, even in a full-fledged studio like what I've got here, it's an incredible addition. It just is a little small and a little fidgety to work with by comparison, but much more compact, much more portable, much more modern in how it's designed to perform and the features that it's equipped with. You may be reduced to like an 1/8 inch, a 3.5 millimeter I/O, but it's fabulous the way it integrates with other gear, with it sync in and out, MIDI in and out, which is something you don't get on the VT4. And you're mix in and out with an additional microphone on the mix out controller, so you could use a headset with a microphone attachment and work in a much simpler environment that way, or used for streaming or gaming, or however you might conceive of it in a non-musical context, which the VT-4 was very popular for too. It must have that same feature. Whereas you have a headphone output, a mic input, a selectable stereo or mono toggle here. You've got phantom power on the VT-4, which allows you to use a much more professional array of microphones and audio devices. You just won't be able to use the E4 without accommodating that somehow. The E4 has replaced the VT-4 in my studio. I still find a lot of use for the VT-4. I still appreciate all that it can do. Sometimes it comes on the road with me or does smaller projects, where the E4 has a very permanent spot in the vocal chain of my studio. The looper makes a huge difference. The scatter is a lot of fun and very versatile when we're just playing around and jamming. It's a really nice upgrade from the VT-4 for creative use and for having fun. I have no vision to sell or let the VT-4 go. It's still a very handy tool in the studio, and I appreciate a lot of its features, even those beyond the E4. Without that class compliancy, without that versatility of being able to plug to anything immediately, anywhere, or have batteries on the go all the time, it just doesn't have the same range. It just doesn't have the same versatility. I just can't use it or appreciate it the same way that Roland has made all of these improvements on with this newest generation. So between the two, the E4 gets my 2024 recommendation. It's just a much smarter unit for a more modern studio, but the VT4 is perfect for the same type of use. I've got the E4, I've got the VT4, I still have my old VT3, and I swear by it. All three are just brilliant devices and handy in the studio for bringing extra sound, for bringing extra audio inputs into my MX1, connecting to the computer, or running through the guitar. The VT3 has some incredible reverb in it. And you can load the same algorithms into the VT4, but they just don't have the same impact that they have on the VT3. It is like the voice of an angel. It's worth keeping around just for that. I hope this comparison shed a little bit of light on things for you and why you might be leaning towards one or the other. I've got them both. I'm keeping them both, and I'm going to make music with them both. So thanks for watching, and I really look forward to sharing some jams and some music creating with both of these fantastic and fun machines. I'll leave it to you what you think is better.